He is your twin. He has got your eyes, she smiled and said while holding the baby. I stared at a face that looked nothing like mine and forced a smile. Though every guy on the construction crew already knew the truth, she named him after me. But I am Irish, and he looks Hispanic. The DNA test changed everything. I never thought I would be one of those guys posting on Reddit about paternity issues, but here I am, completely lost, and questioning everything. I am Reese, 34, and until 2 days ago, I thought I was going to be raising my son. Now, I don't know what to think. Some background. I met Savannah, 28F, about 12 months ago at this upscale sports bar near the construction site where I work as a union electrician. We hit it off immediately. She is beautiful, attentive, and seemed genuinely interested in my life. After just a few weeks of dating, she was already asking about my future plans, my family, even my finances. At the time, I thought she was just being thorough about who she was getting involved with. 2 months into our relationship, she told me she was pregnant. I was shocked since we had been careful, but I immediately stepped up. Where I come from, Irish Catholic family in Denver, you don't run from responsibility, especially when it comes to kids. My own dad walked out when I was 7, and I swore I would never do that to my child. So even though it was fast, I committed to being there for her and the baby. I even started putting money aside and looking at bigger apartments. Looking back, there were signs I should have questioned. She seemed to really perk up when she found out I owned a duplex rental property. She was very interested in my union benefits and the inheritance I had recently received from my grandmother. But I was so caught up in trying to do the right thing that I ignored these red flags. Fast forward to 2 days ago when Savannah gave birth to a healthy baby boy. She named him Reese Jr., which touched me deeply. But when the nurse brought him over, I felt like I was in some kind of bizarre dream. This baby clearly has Hispanic features: olive skin, thick black hair, and a facial structure nothing like mine. I am as pale Irish as they come: red hair, freckles, the works. When I expressed my confusion, Savannah immediately got defensive, saying that she has distant Mexican ancestry and that genetics can skip generations. She started crying about how hurtful it was that I would question her in such a vulnerable moment. I backed off immediately, feeling like a complete jerk for even bringing it up, but I cannot shake this feeling. I am not racist. This isn't about not wanting a mixed-race child. It is about the fact that this baby looks absolutely nothing like me and shares features that neither Savannah, who is blonde and fair, nor I possess. Plus, her sudden mention of Mexican ancestry was the first I had ever heard of it in months of dating. Yesterday, my coworker Finn came to the hospital to congratulate me. When he saw the baby, he pulled me into the hallway and bluntly said, "Reese, that baby isn't even white. What are you doing, man?" Hearing someone else say it out loud made me feel less crazy. But I still don't know what to do. I haven't slept since the birth. I keep going back and forth between feeling like a horrible person for questioning paternity and feeling like a complete fool for potentially being tricked. Every time I look at this innocent baby, my heart breaks thinking about what this might mean. To complicate things further, Savannah's already talking about how we need to move into a bigger place, how she will need to stay home with the baby for at least a year, and how we should start a college fund immediately. I am starting to feel like an ATM rather than a partner or father. The Catholic guilt I was raised with is tearing me apart. Questioning a new mother feels so wrong, but my gut is screaming that something isn't right here. Am I crazy? Is it possible for 2 white people to have a baby with such pronounced Hispanic features? Should I request a paternity test? And if so, how do I even bring that up without destroying our relationship? I have always prided myself on being a stand-up guy, but right now I feel like either a sucker or a jerk, with no middle ground. Edit. Thank you to everyone who commented. I wasn't expecting such overwhelming support. To answer some common questions. Yes, I have known Savannah for about 11 months total. We dated for 2 months before the pregnancy announcement. And yes, the timing would match up if the baby is mine. Several people have mentioned that I should get a paternity test regardless of the appearance issues, just for legal protection, which is something I hadn't even considered. Update 1. First off, I want to thank everyone who commented on my original post. Reading your responses made me feel less alone and less crazy for questioning what is happening. It has been 5 days since my last post, and things have gotten even more complicated. Savannah and baby Reese Jr. were discharged from the hospital 3 days ago. I took some time off work to help them get settled at her apartment. The entire time, I have been trying to ignore the voice in my head telling me something's off. Every time I look at the baby, I search for any feature that might be mine. The shape of his ears, the curve of his nose, anything to quiet my doubts. But there is just nothing. Yesterday, I went back to work at the construction site, and it was immediately obvious that word had spread. My union brothers aren't exactly known for their subtlety. Before I even made it to my toolbox, I had 3 different guys pull me aside with variations of "Dude, what are you doing?" and tell me you are getting a test. Finn, my coworker who saw the baby at the hospital, had apparently shown pictures to some of the other electricians. One of them, Miguel, who is Mexican himself, looked at the photo and immediately said, "That is a Latino baby. 100%. No question." What really got to me was when my foreman, Bill, who has been like a mentor to me since I joined the union, called me into his trailer. He closed the door, sat me down, and said, "Reese, I watched my brother raise another man's kid for 6 years before finding out the truth. It destroyed him. Don't make the same mistake." The pressure from my coworkers pushed me to finally have the conversation with Savannah last night. I tried to approach it as gently as possible, suggesting that for legal reasons and peace of mind, maybe we should get a paternity test done. I even offered to pay for it myself. Her reaction was explosive. She accused me of calling her a cheater, said I was being racist about the baby's appearance, and claimed I was trying to abandon my responsibilities. She kept saying things like, "A real man wouldn't question this, and your father walked out, and now you are doing the same thing." Those words cut deep, hitting all my insecurities about turning into my dad. When I tried to explain that it wasn't about race, but about the complete lack of any resemblance, she deflected by talking about how stressed she was and how I was making her postpartum anxiety worse. She ended up locking herself in the bedroom with the baby, refusing to discuss it further. This morning, she acted like nothing had happened, but with a new tactic. She handed me a list of things the baby urgently needs: a $1,200 crib, a $900 stroller, a year's supply of diapers, and so on. She also mentioned that her lease is up next month, and she has found a perfect family home that would only be $600 more per month than what she is currently paying. Not so subtly suggesting I should cover that increase. All this financial talk immediately after I mentioned a paternity test has my alarm bells ringing even louder. Finn has been doing some digging at the bar where Savannah works and has discovered some disturbing patterns. Apparently, she has dated at least 2 other regular customers in the past couple of years. Both of them guys with good jobs and financial stability. One bartender hinted that she specifically targets men she sees as financially secure. I also found out that Savannah specifically asked about my grandmother's inheritance just a week before telling me she was pregnant. At the time, I thought she was just making conversation, but now it feels calculated. The more I think about it, the more I realize how little I actually know about Savannah. I have never met her family. She claims they are estranged. Don't know much about her past relationships. And now I am questioning everything she has ever told me about herself. My Catholic upbringing has me twisted in knots of guilt. Walking away from a child, even one that might not be mine, feels wrong on a fundamental level. I keep thinking about how I felt when my dad left. The abandonment, the confusion, the hole it left in my life. The thought of potentially causing that pain for another child makes me physically ill. But Finn made a point that is stuck with me. He said, "If you raise this kid thinking he might not be yours, you will resent him, eventually. That is worse than walking away now." I think he might be right. I have decided to order a home paternity test kit. Savannah doesn't need to know for now. I can get a cheek swab while she is sleeping or in the shower. I know that is sneaky, but after her reaction, I don't see another option. I need to know the truth before I commit my life and finances to this situation. In the meantime, I am holding off on any major purchases or financial commitments. I told Savannah I needed to check my budget before agreeing to the new place or the expensive baby items. She was clearly annoyed but didn't push it. I feel like I am living in a bizarre alternate reality. A week ago, I was excited about becoming a father. Now I am secretly ordering paternity tests and questioning everything I thought I knew about my relationship. I never imagined I would be in this position. Update 2. It has been 3 weeks since my last update, and I have been putting off writing this because part of me still cannot believe it is real. The paternity test results came back. 0% probability that I am the father of baby Reese Jr. 0. Not even a margin of error. The day I got the email with the results, I felt like I had been punched in the gut, even though I suspected it. Having scientific confirmation was something else entirely. I sat in my truck in the construction site parking lot for almost an hour, just staring at my phone screen, trying to process what this meant. I decided to confront Savannah that same evening. To keep things calm, I suggested we meet at a quiet cafe near her apartment, somewhere neutral but public enough that she'd stay composed. I asked one of her friends to watch the baby so we could talk without distractions. When she arrived, I didn't waste time. I simply showed her my phone with the test results. Her reaction told me everything. No shock, no confusion. Just immediate anger that I had gone behind her back. Not once did she deny the results, or seem surprised by them. "You had no right to do this without telling me," she said, completely ignoring the fact that she had been lying to me for months. When I pressed her about who the actual father was, she initially refused to say, claiming it didn't matter because I had committed to being there for her and the baby. I kept my cool, which seemed to frustrate her more. She switched tactics, starting to cry about how she would be a single mother, how the baby needed a father figure, how she couldn't afford to raise him alone. When that didn't work, she got nasty, threatening to tell everyone I had abandoned them, that I was a deadbeat who walked away from his responsibilities, even though we now had scientific proof that I had no biological responsibilities to this child. After about 20 minutes of this, I had had enough. I told her firmly that while I was sorry for her situation, I wouldn't be financially or emotionally responsible for another man's child that she had attempted to pass off as mine. I also told her that she needed to change the baby's name, as calling him Reese Jr. was now inappropriate and would only cause confusion for the child later in life. That is when she finally broke down and admitted the truth. The real father is Diego, a line cook at the restaurant where she works. Apparently, they had been hooking up casually for months before she met me. When she found out she was pregnant, she decided Diego wouldn't be a suitable father because he sends most of his money back to family in Mexico and lives with 3 roommates. She saw me, with my union job, benefits, duplex property, and inheritance, as a better option. I was trying to give my baby a better life, she said, as if that justified the massive deception. Diego can barely support himself. You could give the baby everything he deserves. I asked if Diego even knew about the baby. She hesitated before admitting that he did know she was pregnant but believed she had gotten with me immediately after finding out, and that I had accepted the child as mine. She had told him to keep his distance because her new boyfriend was stepping up. I was disgusted. Not only had she lied to me, but she had also kept a father from his child for her own financial benefit. I told her I was going to find Diego and tell him the truth. That is when she got really panicked, begging me not to because he is undocumented and afraid of getting involved with anything official. I left the cafe feeling a bizarre mix of emotions: relief that I had confirmation, anger at being deceived, sadness for the baby who was caught in the middle of this mess, and even some guilt about walking away despite knowing I was doing the right thing. The next day, I went to the restaurant where Savannah works and asked for Diego. When he came out, looking nervous and confused, I introduced myself simply as the guy Savannah was dating. His face immediately showed recognition and discomfort. I asked him if we could talk privately, and we went to a nearby park. I showed him the paternity test and explained that I had been led to believe I was the father, but now knew that wasn't the case. I also told him that based on timing and the baby's appearance, I was pretty certain he was the real father. His reaction was not what I expected. Instead of denial or anger, Diego's eyes welled up. "I knew it," he said quietly. "The baby looks just like my brother's son." He then explained that Savannah had told him it couldn't be his baby because the timing didn't work out, and that she had already moved on with someone else who was willing to be the father. He had been heartbroken but accepted her story. When I asked if he wanted to be involved in the child's life, his answer was immediate. Of course, that is my son. But he was clearly terrified about his undocumented status and what it might mean if things got official or legal. He explained that he sends most of his money to his parents and siblings in Mexico, which is why he lives so modestly here. I felt a strange kinship with Diego in that moment. Here was a guy who had also been manipulated by Savannah, but unlike me, he actually did have a responsibility to the child. I gave him my number and told him I would help him figure out his options if he wanted. I also promised not to involve immigration authorities in any way. After meeting Diego, I consulted with a family law attorney to understand exactly what my obligations were or weren't in this situation. The lawyer confirmed that with a 0% paternity result and no marriage or adoption, I had zero legal obligation to the child. He advised me to keep the test results and all communication with Savannah in case she tried to pursue any kind of support claim later. I also reached out to Savannah one last time, primarily to let her know I had spoken with Diego and that he wanted to be involved with his son. Her response was predictably manipulative. First anger, then tears, then attempts to make me feel guilty, and finally, an attempt to negotiate some kind of financial support anyway. I ended the conversation by blocking her number. The aftermath has been strange. There is an enormous relief in knowing the truth and being freed from what would have been a lifetime of financial obligation to a child that wasn't mine. But there is also a strange grief. For the future I had started to imagine, for the baby I had started to care about, and even for the relationship I thought I had with Savannah. My union brothers have been incredibly supportive. Finn organized a night out with the guys where they all took turns roasting me for my gullibility, but also congratulating me on dodging a bullet. It was exactly the kind of rough but caring support I needed. I have heard through mutual connections that Savannah has been telling people I abandoned her and the baby, painting herself as the victim. But thankfully, the truth has spread faster than her lies. The manager at her restaurant, who has seen the paternity test results, has been setting the record straight with anyone who asks. As for Diego, we have met a few more times. He is actually a decent guy who was caught in Savannah's web just like I was. He is terrified about his immigration status but determined to be part of his son's life. He is already looking for a better paying job and researching what rights he has as an undocumented parent. I respect his commitment. For now, I am focusing on moving forward. The guilt I felt about abandoning the baby has largely disappeared now that I know Diego wants to be involved. I have learned a hard but valuable lesson about trusting too quickly and ignoring red flags. My Catholic upbringing taught me to take responsibility, but I am realizing there is a difference between responsibility and being taken advantage of. I will post a final update in a few months to let you know how things have settled. Thank you again for all the support and advice. It truly helped me through one of the most confusing and difficult periods of my life. Final update. The biggest news is that Savannah has moved to Phoenix. About 2 months after my last post, she suddenly announced on social media that she was relocating for a fresh start. According to mutual friends, she is already working at an upscale sports bar there and has been seen chatting up construction workers and contractors who come in after work. Some patterns never change. Before she left Denver, she tried one last-ditch effort to get money from me. She showed up at my duplex unannounced with the baby, crying about how she couldn't afford formula and diapers. I simply handed her Diego's phone number and closed the door. Harsh maybe, but necessary after all. Her manipulation. Speaking of Diego, he has stepped up in ways that have genuinely impressed me. Despite his financial limitations and concerns about his immigration status, he has fully embraced being a father. He is working 2 jobs now to support his son, who has been officially renamed Diego Jr., and he has started taking English classes to better communicate with his child as he grows up. In a strange twist, Diego's commitment to his son has made me reflect on my own father's abandonment even more. Here is a guy with far fewer resources and much bigger obstacles than my dad ever faced. Yet he is doing everything he can to be present for his child. It is both inspiring and painful to witness. Diego and I still keep in touch occasionally. There is a weird bond that forms when you have both been manipulated by the same person. He sends me photos of little DJ, his nickname for Diego Jr. Sometimes, and I have to admit, the kid is cute as hell. I feel no resentment toward the baby. He is an innocent in all this. and I am glad he has at least one parent who truly cares about him. As for me, I have taken the money I would have spent on supporting Savannah and the baby and invested it in my rental property business instead. I used part of my grandmother's inheritance to put a down payment on another duplex, which is already generating good rental income. My plan is to acquire one property a year until I have enough passive income to retire early. I am not dating anyone seriously yet. This experience has made me much more cautious about relationships. I am taking my time getting to know people before diving in, and I am paying much closer attention to red flags. My union brothers joke that I now run background checks on women before agreeing to a second date, which isn't entirely untrue. The whole experience has taught me some valuable lessons that I will carry forward into every relationship. First and foremost, I have learned to trust my instincts. My gut was screaming that something was wrong from the moment I saw that baby. But I tried to silence it because I wanted to be a good man. Looking back, I should have listened to that inner voice immediately instead of doubting myself. Moreover, I have come to understand that being a good man doesn't mean being a sucker. There is nothing noble about allowing yourself to be manipulated and financially exploited. In fact, it only enables destructive behavior. Furthermore, I have realized the immense value of honest friends. The people who truly care about you will tell you the truth, even when it is uncomfortable. My union brothers calling out the obvious was exactly the wake-up call I needed when I was too close to the situation to see clearly. Finally, and perhaps most practically, I now firmly believe paternity tests should be standard procedure before signing any birth certificate. After all, $300 for a test is a whole lot cheaper than 18 years of child support for someone else's kid, a lesson I fortunately learned before it was too late. I still have moments of what if the baby had been mine? What if Savannah had actually loved me rather than seeing me as a meal ticket? What if I had built the family I have always wanted? But those moments are getting less frequent as I focus on building my future. The guilt I was raised with still occasionally rears its head. There are nights when I wonder if I should have just accepted the situation and raised the child anyway, given him the stable father I never had. But then I remind myself that Diego Jr. has a father who wants to be in his life, and that forcing myself into a fraudulent situation would have led to resentment that would have eventually harmed everyone involved. My Irish Catholic mother still doesn't know the full story. I have only told her that Savannah and I broke up and that the baby turned out not to be mine. She made the sign of the cross when I mentioned the paternity test and muttered something about modern relationships, but she is glad I am focusing on my business now. Finn, who was so instrumental in helping me see the truth, has become an even closer friend through all this. He has divorced himself and has been through his own relationship disasters, which is why he was so quick to spot the red flags with Savannah. He is the one who convinced me to invest in more property, rather than blow the money I saved on something frivolous. So that is where things stand 6 months later. Life has returned to a new normal. I am focusing on work, investments, and rebuilding my trust in relationships gradually. I am more cautious now, but not bitter. If anything, I am grateful that I discovered the truth before getting legally tied to Savannah through marriage or by signing the birth certificate. Turns out the best investment I ever made was $300 for a paternity test instead of 18 years of child support for someone else's kid. My union brothers saved me from financial slavery. Sometimes being a good man means having the balls to demand proof.